Hey everybody, welcome to Grimsforge Gaming. I've got 3 separate sorcerer builds for you today, so stick around for that. We have an update to our Storm Atronach 2.0, and that build's probably going to be the best for battlegrounds currently, and when we dive into that we'll explain why. And then we have a brand new build for you that features almost 4,800 spell damage and hits super hard. And the name of that build is 1.21 Jiggawatts. So for you, those of you out there that know what reference that comes from. But anyways, that build hits extremely hard, and however there is a price to pay for that type of power that you wield. And then the final build is going to be an update to my Valkorion build. So we're offering Valkorion 2.0, and that build is extremely dangerous. So however, that one's tailored almost exclusively for Imperial City. So that's our 3 builds today: Storm Atronach 2.0, 1.21 Jiggawatts, and then Valkorion 2.0. Thank you. Alright everybody, welcome back. We're going to jump right into Storm Atronach 2.0, and I can tell you this is an extremely user-friendly build, and as we jump into it we'll explain why. But I would definitely pick this for battlegrounds as well, when we're looking at performance issues, getting desynced by Magnum Shot, desynced by Overload, desynced by Snipe, and where performance is at right now. Sometimes you can't bar swap and things like that. So this build offers a safety net that is extremely useful. So the first thing that we're going to look at is we have kind of a flex spot. You can run either way with this. Right now I have Ring of the Wild Hunt here, and if you wanted to do that for speed you could, or you could go Pale Order for more healing. I do think that speed is king, and if you've never played a sorcerer that is also using Ring of the Wild Hunt, it's a lot of fun. Speed is king, and being able to maneuver. So if you look at this right here, we've got the Swift trait for that extra 7% movement speed, and then right below that it says increase your movement speed by 15% while in combat. So you take that 15% plus a 7, this is 22% additional movement speed while in combat. Plus we have access to Major Expedition on this build, so that would put us over 50% movement speed while in combat if you use both of those in unison. And then increase your movement speed by 45% while out of combat, and so you take the 45 plus the 7, you'll be at 52% movement speed out of combat. So 52% movement speed out of combat plus our 30% Major Expedition, you know, we're moving over 80% additional movement speed. Plus we're a sorcerer, we have access to Streak, and so that movement is so valuable when you know how to use it offensively and defensively to put yourself in the best possible position to secure kills. So, and you notice how I said secure kills too, not steal kills, which is very easy to do on sorcerers. But when you are wearing a mythic item, unless you're running a front bar back bar setup, which we're not on this, it will usually break up your monster set, and so that's what it has done on this build. And now, while we said that this is a flex spot, this is also a flex spot, and right now I've just got Molokina on here. We've got a little bit of extra impen. You can see we have the prismatic enchant on there. I'm a huge fan of prismatic enchant, and we'll get to that when we start talking about the stats of the build. But the one piece of Molokina just gives us extra spell damage. That's great. Now if you wanted to put Scoria here, you could, a light Scoria helm, and the light Scoria helm is going to give you more pen against targets. We are in a tanky meta right now, so Scoria might be the play. Also, another thing that you could put here is Helm of the Trainee. If you could get it in light, it needs to be light, but if you could get a Helm of the Trainee, you could get an extra 1450 health out of this build. And so this is a flex spot that could go whichever way you want. If you need more pen, you need more spell damage, or you need more health. So, or more mag recovery, or put Dami here and get more stand, more max mag. Completely up to you. Play it the way you want. Now, the first actual 5-piece set that we have on this build, and if you've seen our Storm Atronach 1.0, it's the same setup, and we'll tell you why, but it's the Phoenix set. The Phoenix set can be acquired down in Imperial City with Telvar, and so if you were to go up to the Telvar merchants, you could buy the actual armor pieces for 5k Telvar a piece, or for 3k Telvar you could go to like the armor merchant that sells the armor bags that are complete RNG. That's the only way that you can get the jewelry of the Phoenix and the weapons of the Phoenix, is through those 3k armor bundles, the Phoenix armor bundles. And so that's probably the biggest negative to the build, which just means you need to get down to Imperial City and start farming. Maybe look Icy or myself up and hook up with us and we'll show you the ropes. Anyways, you can see that we're running a Flame Staff of the Phoenix and it's Nirnhoned. I want the best possible spell damage on this build that we can squeeze out. And you can see we have the Shot Glyph on here too that plays really well. But the Phoenix set, let's talk about this. The 2 pieces max mag, the 3 pieces magic recovery, the 4 pieces spell damage, and then the 5 piece. When you take damage while below 25% health, gain a damage shield that absorbs 14,000 damage and deals 10,000 flame damage to nearby enemies. This effect can occur once every minute, and I'll be showing you footage probably right now of a BG that I was playing this on, and I'll have a couple separate clips of how this triggers, and once this triggers, how you have this counterplay window of opportunity to save yourself. Okay, and when we start talking about the abilities on the bar, we'll talk about the synergy, how this synergizes so well with the way I play Sorcerer. But anyways, the Phoenix, and on the back bar right now you can see that we have the Resto staff, so Destro, Resto, and we have the additional spell damage glyph on the back. So I travel around in Battlegrounds and open world on my Destro bar normally because my Destro bar is defending, which this is not. But so that would be a change that I'd like to make, is have this defending. But basically when we're traveling around, we have access to Major Expedition plus the Ring of the Wild Hunt on our back bar, and access to Streak. So we're very mobile, very dangerous, and we can initiate fights by using an offensive streak and then turning and burning on somebody. And so that's kind of the telltale sign of a very good sorcerer. People that use Streak offensively, they're very dangerous. And so one of the first lessons we teach newer sorcerers for PvP is how to use the offensive streak. But anyways, this Resto staff I probably golded out, and we're just using Phoenix on both of those, so you can see, make this one defending if you can. And the second set that we are running is Twiceborn Star. This set is this is where we throw a lot of people a curve, and this is the same set from Storm Atronach 1.0, and there's a reason for it. But we've got prismatic enchants on this, and in divines. I'm a more advanced user of this build, and so I can run with lower impen and run with divines, which really accentuates the 5 piece of this. You can have 2 Mundus stones at one time. The flexibility that Twiceborn Star gives you for PvP and open world is immense. If I need more pen, I can go with the Lover. If I need more magic regen, I can pick that up. If I need more spell damage, I can pick that up. And I can nip and tuck. I could pick up more speed. If I wanted to run the steed, I could get another 10% movement speed, you know, and some health recovery. So the flexibility that Twiceborn Star gives you is great. So 2-piece max health, 3-piece is max stam, 4-piece max magicka, and then basically the 5-piece for me right now is 435 magic recovery and 330 spell damage. So I get all those max stats plus 435 magic recovery and 334 spell damage. So it's a very useful set for me. So I'm going to hover over each one of these things real quick. Start out as impen if this is a new build for you, and then come off of it and go divines as you feel more comfortable with it. But there's that. Divines, 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 and this should have the prismatic enchant on it, and it does not, and it's got impen, but hey, whatever. And you can see that we are not infused spell damage on these. That's another thing that you could do on this. If you wanted to infuse all of these, you'd get another 300 spell damage there, and this enchant will give you another 300. So our spell damage could jump up 600-700, you know, probably 700 additional spell damage. So when we look at it, our spell damage would go from roughly 3,700, 3,800, and add 700 on top of that, right? And so that would take you to the 4,400, 4,500 spell damage. That gets the job done, okay? Let's look at the stats on the build. 1900 plus magic recovery. This is another huge benefit to this build. 1300 health recovery, great. Almost 900 stamina recovery. 3700 spell damage. We said it'll go up to almost 4500 with some changes. 22,000 spell resistance and 1900 physical resistance, almost 20k physical. Now both of these would go up what, almost 2500, 2900, let's say 3k if our resto staff was defending, right? Which it's not right now, but if our resto staff was defending, we would be at 25,000 spell resistance and probably 23,000 physical resistances, and that's pretty good for a 2 heavy 5 light. Okay, only 1500 crit resistance because I'm running mostly divines on it, and our pin on this build, our pin on the build is 7,500, and this seems to get the job done. If you wanted to run, like we said, Scoria, then you would hit the 10k pin, and you know, maybe you could go that route. You could also pick up the Lover Mundus, and then you're in the 12 to 14k pin range, so it's super flexible, very user-friendly build with a huge safety net through Phoenix, and so I really like that. So let's talk about, we are running Bewitched Sugar Skulls, by the way, and if you wanted to, I don't recommend changing your food up. You could run Witch Mother's Potent Brew. Your stamina would become an issue. That's what we're going to talk about right now. I work with a lot of new sorcerers and a lot of new PvPers, and here's the most common thing that we run into right now with sorcerers. And there's going to be some people that are watching this and laughing, like 33k max mag on a sorcerer, haha. The people that I'm working with, the new PvPers, are commonly running into these problems, and so you're maybe a more advanced PvPer than them, or not, and you just don't realize something. That is, new PvPers sprint 2 fights. They're burning stamina. They burn half their stamina before. This is a common thing too. I'm not picking on any specific player that I've been working with over the past week or anything like that, but new PvPers sprint everywhere. They burn half their stamina just trying to get to the fight, and they take the first CC that comes to them, and they can't break free, or they can break free, and then in 6 seconds when the next CC comes, they're dead. It doesn't matter that you got 40 or 50k max mag. It doesn't matter. You know, you're going to find yourself shield stacking and trying to streak away while immobilized or stunned, and streak's not working or whatever, and you get stam checked and killed. The lack of stamina is killing new sorcerers and killing new players to Magicka classes. It's as simple as that. Nobody can argue this, because I've been working with new PvPers for a long time now. So they accidentally sprint into battle, they take a bad CC, and they don't have stamina or break free, and it didn't even matter that they had 40 or 50k max mag. They get killed anyways. So if you are a new sorcerer and you're getting killed in BGs, that's one of the first things that I recommend you do, is actually go and reflect on your deaths and see if you're getting stam checked, couldn't break free, or maybe you have the stamina to break free, but break free is just simply not working, or you got desynced. You took a magnum shot, you took a overload, you took a snipe, and now you're just sitting there taking damage. And so get your max stamina up, and Twiceborn Star helps you do that. So I like where the max health on this build is at too, at 27,000. This is a super user friendly build, and 33,000 max Magicka gets the job done. And we do have, while we had 1900 with a potion pop magic recovery, we do kind of have unlimited sustain on this build through an ability. So that's something I noticed about the build. Let's jump into the abilities, and let's look at those. So we are running Crushing Shock. We like the the interrupt and setting targets off balance. That's great. And basically you can see there 3,200, 3,200, 3,300. That's like over 9k right there. So this is going to hit players for about 4k. Each one of those lines has its own separate individual opportunity of critting as well, plus a light attack on the target. You'll see the light attack damage with the potential enchant going off as well. So you're going to see 5 levels of damage just doing a light attack crushing shock. Okay, it's really nice. Next thing we're going to look at are crystal frags. Now at the bottom here it says casting a magic ability has a 35% chance to cause your next crystal frag to be instant, dealing 66% more damage and costing you 50% less. You normally don't want to hard cast this. You only use this when it procs, and it's going to hit 66% harder. So if you were to add 66% on the 11k there, let's say it's a 16k tooltip on your crystal frag, it means it's going to hit enemy players for 7 to 8k, right? And so it just hits really hard, and it costs you less to do it. This can proc at any moment too while you're doing your regular rotation. And I really like my offensive bar being set up this way as well. Haunting Curse has almost a 14k tooltip with some explosion damage. It's going to do an AoE explosion for almost 6k around it, and this is going to explode twice for almost 14k on a target. So this is like 6k damage on somebody, you know. It's coming around twice after 3.5 seconds. And so what I commonly do when I'm teaching new PvPers is you need to prime your targets, and priming your targets is make sure you have Endless Fury on them. And Endless Fury is if the enemy falls below 20% health within 4 seconds of being struck, an explosion deals 14k, almost 15k shock damage to them and 3k splash damage. Okay, if an enemy dies to this, you also get a huge amount of magicka back too. So it's beneficial to put this on targets. Also, you can have this on multiple targets, and this is probably the ability that really makes a lot of people mad in BGs. If you're seeing stop kill stealing, you know, they're specifically talking to you as a sorcerer, but at the end of the day, here's what I teach new PvPers. There's no guarantee that that person that's telling you that is going to secure the kills. There's no guarantee. You might as well secure them. Okay, so as a sorcerer, secure the kills out there, and if it steals the kill from your teammate, so be it. Your job is to put people away, right? So put this on low people, whoever's attacking them, it doesn't matter. Just make sure this is on everyone that's low health, and you're going to see some really nice kill to death ratio, hopefully. But how you prime someone: get this on the target, get Haunting Curse on the target, and if frags procs, let a frags go. If not, do an offensive streak through them and then turn and burn on them with a light attack crushing shock. And in that moment, if another frags comes up, let it rip. But in that moment, after you've streaked through the target and you turn light attack crushing shock, this explodes for its first time, and this explode will probably finish them off. Also, if you wanted to amp it up even further, the thing about this build is the way the offense lines up on a sorcerer, it's very easy to put people away, okay? It's very easy to put people away and sit on your ultimate. You don't need the ultimate to kill people unless they're the ultra tanky people right now, or the werewolves. I definitely say hit your energy overload and give them the full effect. But when you activate energy overload, your light attacks become lightning bolts, dealing 12,000 unbuffed magical damage. Okay, so you've got 12k damage on your light attacks now, and what's that go up to? Probably 14k. Yeah, just under 14k. So we're going to hit enemy players for 6k on a light attack, and then you got the light attack enchant going off on your weapon too. And so every single thing that you do, you can throw in a light attack to the next thing, light attack to the next thing, and the damage on this works very well. Also, you can see that this ultimate only costs 21 ultimate, and so a common play that I teach new PvPers on sorcerers is, if you're going to be going into battlegrounds, front load your ultimate. Like, just be out in open world killing mobs, getting your ultimate, and if you can get it up to 500, that's great. You'll enter the battleground with 500 ultimate. Do you know how many rounds of this you can squeeze off at only 21 ultimate? You're gonna be a freaking lightning bolt machine gun. So This is awesome, okay? However, you don't need it. And so what I find myself is just being able to put people away with my regular kit. I'm sitting on my ultimate, and every single time Phoenix procs and saves my butt, I now have the ultimate to cast my resto ult. And so my resto ult that I'm running on the back bar, we'll start talking about this, is Life Giver. And you can see unbuffed Life Giver is going to give me 8600, we'll say 9k health every 1 second for 5 seconds. So 9k health every second for 5 seconds is huge. But the next thing about Life Giver, when you activate this ability, you automatically cast Regeneration, Blessing of Protection, and Steadfast Ward at no cost. This will update based on which morph of the ability you have taken. And so I've went with Rapid Regen. Unbuffed, that's 17k health coming in the next 5 seconds, which just so happens to be the duration of Life Giver as well. So I've got that 9k health coming in every second from that, plus I've got whatever 18k divided by 5 comes to math, right? But Rapid Regen is adding to that health coming in. So I get that. I get a little burst heal from Blessing of Protection, and it gives me Minor Resolve. Another 3k resistances on top of my current resistances, so this is nice. It gets me out of the execute range, okay? You get an upfront 9k there, you get a hot coming in there, whatever your first hot tick of that is, burst heal coming in from that, plus more resistances, and then you get another shield. Call with Healing Ward. Call on your staff's strength to protect you or the lowest health ally around you within a damage shield that absorbs 4,000 damage. Now, 4,000 doesn't seem like a huge shield, and it's really not, but let me explain something to you. Let me read the bottom here. The shield strength is increased by 100% depending on the severity of the target's health. Okay, so let's say that we meet that qualification by Phoenix proccing, where we are now at the 25% health threshold, right? And because we hit our 25% health threshold, Phoenix procs, we're probably going to meet this qualification for 100% additional, that shield's going to be an 8k shield, okay? While the shield persists, the target is healed for 34% of the shield's remaining strength every second. Okay, so if it's an 8k shield, 34% of that, here's math for you again, but it's a significant amount every second that the shield remains. The shield remains for 6 seconds, which is the entire duration, plus a second, for Life Giver. It's the entire duration of Rapid Regen. So let's talk about how this happens, what normally happens when you're getting bursted down. I'm offensively going on somebody, and I take a metric ton of damage. The way shields work on a sorcerer is the first shield in is the first shield off, okay? So if I cast a shield, any damage that comes in, like when you're shield stacking, the first shield that you stack is the first shield that gets burnt down. Understanding that is important. So if I don't currently have a shield up, I'm fighting a guy, we're boxing, and I'm winning that fight, and then I get blindsided by a Mack truck, okay? Deltia's Gaming swings through the windows like SWAT team and hits me with Big Jake. We're gonna drop Deltia's name in here, it'll be funny. Deltia swings through the window, hits me with Big Jake, and completely nukes my life. I drop down to the threshold where Phoenix pops. I now have a 14k shield, okay? And then I panic. Oh no, it's Big Jake, and I almost died. I've got a 14k shield on me. This will be the first shield that gets burned, okay? Immediately, because I'm on my offensive bar and I'm fighting, I'll cast this shield, Hardened Ward, which is another 9k shield. So this shield comes in under Phoenix, okay? And then I switch to my back bar and I cast this shield, and that shield's going to come in under Hardened Ward, and that's another 6k shield, 7k shield, buffed, whatever, 6k shield. And then I hit Life Giver, and Life Giver is going to give me that 8k shield because I'm at such low health, right? Plus all this healing. All those shields, I'm not even going to do the math to figure out how much shields that is, but it is ridiculous. And the video footage that I showed you, and I could be showing right now, we'll show you right now, is just that armor set and it working exactly that way. And I actually had somebody message me, how are you healing that much? Like, what the heck? Well, it's because the way the Phoenix set saves you and gives you that window of opportunity okay? And so that makes this just, in my opinion, one of the best battlegrounds, open world, and setups to where. Now, do I run into tanky targets, extremely tanky targets that are harder for this build to put away? Yes, but everyone runs into those people right now. It's just a tanky meta. Everyone runs into them, okay? So the extreme tanky people move on to another target, or we have the speed on this to just flat out get away from them. We're at speed cap on this. You know, they're going to need to be at speed cap on this and be able to take our streak stun and break that and then keep up with us. And it's just unlikely, okay? So, back bar, streak, critical surge, boundless storm, harness magicka, and then we've got dark conversion, which basically gives us access to endless sustain on this build. Okay, we have enough stamina, and I don't sprint anywhere for the most part, so I always have enough stamina to use dark conversion. And then I'm also very cognitive of, like, I have a threshold. I don't want to go below 9k stamina and using this unless I absolutely have to. Okay, so as long as I follow that rule, you don't use dark conversion unless you're over 9k stamina, you're fine. Okay, now let's talk about another thing about this build before we move on to CP and stuff, just so you guys understand why this works so well. On this build, you are rewarded for being offensive. It's not necessarily just this build, it's the way sorcerers play, and I run into this regularly with people as I'm teaching them how to effectively PvP as a sorcerer. There are two things going in your way that reward you for being offensive. The first one is going to be this: critical surge. As you do critical damage, you are healed for 3,300 health. So offense becomes your best defense. You're healing the more offensive you are. And this gives you access to major sorcery, so an additional 20% spell damage. So you need to have this up at all times anyways, and you'll benefit from being offensive. The next thing is there's a class passive under Dark Magic. It's a second passive called Blood Magic. When you hit an enemy with a direct applied Dark Magic ability, heal for 2,700. Okay, this rewards you for being offensive. Every time you're offensively boxing with somebody and a Crystal Frags procs and you let it rip, you're going to get a heal from it. Every time you're being offensive and any of this stuff crits, and like we said, each individual line of this has a chance to crit, you're rewarded through crit surge with a heal. And what I find myself doing is, if I'm standing and boxing with an individual, unless they're an extremely hard-hitting individual, most of the time when I take some damage, I just need to use my front bar shield and then go back to being offensive, and I don't even need to actually actively throw a heal on myself, right? When you're looking at this, some people will be like, you don't even have a heal. Like, you can count this as a heal. That's 8k health, but it also has a 1 second cast time. I don't use this for a heal. I use my offense for a heal through the healing that comes through this and through the healing that comes through Blood Magic. And if I take more damage than that and Phoenix procs, then we go through the rotation of all the shield stacking and we use our resto ult, and we're at full health ready to go. And for the next minute, I just need to play it safe. You know, use speed, use line of sight, know that Phoenix safety net's not there. And in that moment, you're just like most other sorcerers out on the battleground that people don't like fighting anyways. I can still shield stack. I just lost Phoenix for a minute, but I still have access to both my shields, you know, and 106 ultimate. Life Giver is available and up all the time. And so one of the probably best sorcerers in the game, Malcolm, uses this, and the way he describes the resto ult is, you know, if I'm boxing multiple people or I'm taking some damage and I want to start putting people away, I don't hit Life Giver and then run away. When you hit Life Giver, it's called tanking down. You're going to tank down and start putting people away. You've got like 5 or 6 second window of just go ham. And so I really like that moment where you need to tank down. I'll share a clip of you too. I was right at the tail end of a BG, but I was at the tail end of a long chain of killing people, and I was fighting a really skilled, I think probably lower CP person, but I was really impressed with them, and I was at the bottom of the barrel for resources. Like Magicka was low, stamina was low, and I was like, we're just gonna make a play here. So I hit my resto ult and just went offensive, and so that ended up working out very well. So this is awesome. I love this build for BGs. Let's jump into our CP and wrap it up. 61 points in Elfborn. We love our critical damage and we love our critical healing. That works out really well. Elemental Expert, 56 points into that. We do every single one of these types of damage, so this is important. 29 points into Spell Erosion, and that's going to give us extra pen on the build. Very important, don't skip out on that. 63 points into Staff Expert. It increases our light and heavy attack damage, and it increases our overload damage, which is great. 61 points into Mastered Arm. Everything we do damage-wise on this build has a direct damage component to it, so this is very important. Nothing here in the Ritual. 61 points in Ironclad. All of the heaviest hitting abilities in the game are going to be direct damage, and so don't skip out on Ironclad. I like getting it to the 21%. 49% or 49 points in the Spell Shield for another 3,900 spell resistance. 40 points in the Light Armor Focus for another 3,300 physical resistances. We are a very beefy sorcerer, like we said. 61 points into Bastion, and this is increases our shields by 21%. And this is very important, especially when we talked about Phoenix having a shield, and then how we shield stack to protect our life and get back to full health. Bastion's nice. This point dump for me, Expert Defender, just gives you a couple extra percent mitigation against light and heavy attacks. 56 points into Quick Recovery, and it increases our healing received by 12%. Very important. 2% or 2 points into Siphoner. This is very important. Don't skip out on this as a sorcerer. The reason being, when you're priming a target, you're putting Endless Fury on them and Haunting Curse. If they're running a cleanse or a purge, they could potentially cleanse or purge Haunting Curse or Endless Fury. However, if you have Siphoner, some points, at least 1 point in the Siphoner, they might just accidentally cleanse or purge that, and then they still have the 2 harmful effects on them that are going to do damage. 61 points into Warlord. You are going to be CC'd. You will need to break free, so don't skip out on this. 49 points into Mooncap. This is very important for new PvPers with Sorcerer or Magicka class, for that matter. The reason being is most Magicka classes suffer, they can be stam checked easy. They are running up to a fight, they get CC'd, they don't have stamina recovery, they dodge roll more than they need to, or they're getting locked down with CCs or immobilizations, and so you need some stamina recovery. Don't think that if you're running around with 12k max stam or 9k max stam, I've seen that on some characters, some sorcerers. If you're running around with that, like we said, 1 break free takes 4k stamina. 1 dodge roll takes 4k stamina. If you only got 9k max stam, you've only got 1,000 stamina left. By the time you're off CC immunity and you can be stunned again, if you've only got 700 stamina recovery, you won't have enough stamina to break free. And so don't skip out on that. 64 points into Arcanist, 56 points into Tenacity, and 27 points into Healthy. This is nice, the added health recovery on top of the Blood Magic healing capability, and then Crit Surge. It just works out really well. 11 points into Tumbling. I do dodge roll on this build. I play it as an athletic sorcerer, dodge rolling from time to time, offensively streaking through people and things like that, so this little bit of extra helps. And so there it is, everybody. Now if you want to come off some points in critical damage or crit healing, you could, and dump it into Blessed. You do you. So anyways, there it is, everybody. Storm Atronach 2.0. This is my battleground build with a huge safety net from Phoenix, and it has enough spell damage to get the job done, and the recoveries are really nice on it. All right, everybody be safe out there, and we're coming at you with 1.21 Jiggawatts, our next build. We'll see you there. Thanks. Hey everybody, welcome back. This is going to be our second build of the day for our 3-part series, and this build is called 1.21 Jiggawatts, and that's a old reference to a movie called Back to the Future. So 1.21 Jiggawatts. This build, and you should be seeing some footage right now, this build is very, very dangerous. It does feature very low sustain, so I would say your advanced sorcerer users would be okay with this build, but this is not like a beginner friendly type build, and so if you're struggling on this build, it's because you're not good at balancing the low sustain on it. Okay, the thing about this also is immense amount of kill potential, and what I found is that if you are putting people away quicker, you're expending less magicka. If you're expending less magicka, you require less magicka recovery, right? Pretty simple concept here. And so that's kind of the premise of the build. How quick can we put people away, and what's the lowest we can go on magic recovery and still be viable doing that. So let's jump into the build. First thing is, we are running a mythic item on this build. Speed is king with this build, and or speed is king in PvP. However, this is a flex spot, so you could run Ring of the Wild Hunt here, or you can run Pale Order. And so I'll show you what both of those look like real quickly, just kind of talk about the pluses and minuses of those. But Ring of the Wild Hunt, I kept it as swift. You could make it infused if you want for an extra 100 spell damage. It doesn't matter, but if your focus is speed, you might as well keep it as swift, right? And you can read the one piece down there: increase your movement speed by 15% while in combat. So you add the 17% on top of the 15, that's 22% additional movement speed while in combat. And we also have access to Major Expedition on demand, so that's an extra 30% movement speed. And so what we find is that the 22% movement speed plus the 30, we're moving it 52% additional movement speed while in combat with people. And for the really heavy hitting stamina classes, if they're not using a gap closer, they just simply can't keep up with us. Plus, we're a sorcerer, we have streak, right? We can create space, create distance. Very important for this build, keeping people at distance, keeping people with space between you and them, allowing you to increase that kill potential on them. So Ring of the Wild Hunt is very nice. And then the other one that we had talked about is the Pale Order. So if I threw Pale Order on here, we are going to move a little bit slower speed. I kept this as Bloodthirsty. I think there's a good reason for Bloodthirsty. It says increase your spell damage against enemies under 90% health. So if they're just missing 10% health, your spell damage starts ramping up. And so on our back bar, we have an enchant that increases our spell damage, and we've got an extra, and that spell damage enchant's going to be roughly 350 spell damage, and here's another 350 spell damage. That's 700 spell damage. And so this build buffed up will be at 4k spell damage, a little over, and then when you add Bloodthirsty and the spell damage enchant from our back bar, we'll get up to 4800 spell damage on this build. 4800 spell damage with the armor sets that we're running and the pen that we have on this build gets the job done. So this is a flex spot. If you wanted to run Ring of the Wild Hunt and being ridiculously fast, moving around at cap movement speed and having streak and just a real speed demon, run Ring of the Wild Hunt. And if you wanted additional heals coming in, run Pale Order. Okay, and some people might say that Pale Order isn't worth it in PvP, but I'd have to disagree with them. If you run Pale Order on a sorcerer in PvP and you are fast, you're also going to be hard to kill. Let's look at the very first set we're running on this build. First 5-piece set is going to be Mechanical Acuity. If you have not used Mechanical Acuity on a sorcerer, it is extremely dangerous. The reason being is how the damage lines up on a sorcerer. And I talked about this with the previous build, how you front load or prime a target, and how I'm teaching beginning level sorcerers to intermediate level sorcerers and priming targets and then using streak offensively to line up your burst. But Mechanical Acuity You can see that the 2-piece says max stamina, the 3-piece says max magicka, the 4-piece gives you spell damage, and then the 5-piece, when you deal direct damage, you gain unerring mechanical vision for 5 seconds, granting you a 100% critical chance. This effect can occur every 18 seconds. Now there are add-ons that will help you recognize when mechanical acuity is up and going, or it's about to be available. For me, I kind of have this internal timer now. I've been testing mechanical acuity on so many different play sets or classes and play styles that I just have that timer kind of built into my mind right now, so that kind of works out. But there is an add-on that will keep track of the mechanical acuity if you need it. Extremely dangerous, and you can see from the clips, but extremely dangerous on a sorcerer. The second set that we are running is Spinner. Okay, and Spinner is going to give us max magicka, spell damage, and then some pen. Right now we're in a tanky meta, and we just need to be putting people away, and penetration paired with spell damage is the way. Right now, that's just the way. The proper amount of pen with the proper amount of spell damage, and you can put people away very quickly. Your kill likelihood goes way up. And so you can also see, because I would say I'm an intermediate to advanced sorcerer. I'm not running in pen on my armor. I'm running divines. Okay, so you could start out with Impen and then advance to Divines. So you can see Impen here. I'm going to hover over each one of these armor sets too, just so you can see. But the other thing too is when you're using a mythic item, it breaks up your monster set. Now this is a flex spot for me. If I want more pen, I'll put a heavy Scoria helm there, and the heavy Scoria helm will give me more penetration. If I want more health, I'll put the Helm of the Trainee, and Helm of the Trainee, Armor of the Trainee comes in training, and I'm just not going to spend the transmute crystals to change that. But anyways, let's hover over each one of the things here real quick. You can see Prismatic Enchant, you can see Divines Prismatic, Divines Prismatic, Divines Prismatic, Divines Prismatic, Divines Prismatic, and Divines Prismatic on the, and you can see these first two jewelry pieces are mechanical acuity, and they are both infused with spell damage. This is important for the build. Now going into update 29, when CP changes, and maybe we're looking at changes and proc sets aren't allowed in Cyrodiil, a mechanical acuity might not be one of the sets that are allowed. It is considered a proc set, even though you're the one doing the damage. It has a proc condition, so we'll kind of wait and see how that goes, but you do have some time to play around with this between now and update 29 whenever that goes live. So anyways, infused, if you want to make this infused, you can. If you want to run Ring of the Wild Hunt or Pale Order, either or work great. Bloodthirsty is pretty interesting to run on a sorcerer because of the way you line up kills with Endless Fury, and so that's pretty nice. The lower they get in health, the more likely the Endless Fury will execute them. And we are running a Nirn-honed mechanical acuity flame staff, and we got flame damage as an enchant. Now the enchant on that, if you wanted to, you could run shock, and shock has a chance to apply minor concussed, and the target will take more damage. So I might switch that out, I'm not sure yet. And we're running mechanical acuity on our back bar. It is defending, and then you can see the enchant for the extra 350 spell damage there. So we got 350 spell damage there, and we'll get up to another 350 spell damage here when their health gets low. And that will take us to, you can see we're at 4K, almost 4,050 spell damage, and you add another 700 spell damage on top of that. There you are, 4,700, 4,800 spell damage. Extremely dangerous build. So let's look at the abilities here real quick. And if you saw the first build, this is pretty much how I like to run my sorcerers. This setup works very well for me. If you fast forwarded to this or used the timestamps to come to this and didn't see, there's some helpful information on that first build video, just talking about what I'm running into as far as training new sorcerers and intermediate sorcerers. But visit that to hear that whole spiel or what I'm running into. Unbuffed right now, it looks like we're at 3,000, 3,000, and 3,100. Let's buff up and see what that tooltip looks like. So we're still about 700 spell damage short with the enchant on the back bar and then Bloodthirsty, but we're at 32, 3,300, 3,300, and then 3,400. So this is going to hit enemy players pretty heavy, and especially each one of those damages have a chance to crit individually when Mechanical Acuity procs, and so that's what makes this build very dangerous. And let's buff up again here. See that our crystal frag is 11, almost 12,000 burst damage, and we only use this when it procs. At the bottom it says casting a magic ability gives this a 35% chance to cause the next crystal frags to hit for 66% harder and cost 50% less. So I try not to hard cast this. We are only going to use it when it procs, and basically if you were to add 66% on top of 12,000 damage, that this will probably hit enemy players for the 7 to 8k range, and then if it's a crit it will hit them for much more, and so it's very dangerous. Our Haunting Curse is going to hit the enemy target for 14k, so enemy players it's going to hit for roughly 7k, and this can crit as well, so it's going to hit them twice for 7k. Which is a lot of damage to them if Mechanical Acuity is up. And then we have Endless Fury, which does proc Mechanical Acuity. So if you initiate your rotation with this, it has a chance to proc Mechanical Acuity. Then everything you do is crit damage. And then we are running Energy Overload. It's too good of an ability not to use. It only costs 21 ultimate, and so what a lot of sorcerers that I teach intermediate to beginner is to front load your ultimate. So if you're queued for a BG, you might as well be out in open world killing mobs, and if you can get up to 200 to 500 ultimate going into the BG, you will be an absolute lightning machine gun. So let's buff up and look at that tooltip on that. And so that's 14k. That's going to hit enemy players for 7k, and if those crit, it's going to blow their pants right off of them. It's crazy how that happens. So anyways, 1.21 gigawatts. How about that? The rotation on this as a sorcerer, this lines up very well with damage. I don't have a problem putting people away. You could see that in the clips on this build. Even the tankiest of builds will get packed up with this, and so it's just a dangerous build. It's very hard to sustain though, and you can see that in the BG clip that I will link in the description. Sustain is rough. You have to be an intermediate to advanced sorcerer to play the build. Back bar, we've got Streak, then we've got Critical Surge. It's going to give us 3,300 healing every time we do crit damage, plus it's our access to major sorcery. That's great. Boundless Storm gives us our major resolve. That's almost 6k additional resistances, and it gives us on-demand access to major expedition, which is 30% additional movement speed for 4 seconds. We have Harness Magicka on our back bar, and we have Dark Conversion. Dark Conversion is basically our access to Endless Sustain. Excuse me. Endless Sustain on the build. I better take a drink here. Holy moly. Okay, there we go. Sweet tea for the win. Dark Conversion though. I don't use this for the heals. Some people might be like, holy cow, you don't have any heals on your bar. And so let's talk about that. Couple things. Number one, you are rewarded on sorcerers for staying offensive. Offense becomes your best defense, and so that's why on my offensive bar I have a shield. I also have directly on the number 4, I have a shield on my front bar and a shield on my back bar if I need to. If I'm being offensive and I take a metric ton of damage, and I need to heal I need to shield, I can be offensive and immediately hit my shield on my front bar without having to worry about bar swap not working or anything like that. So I have shield on my front bar, immediately rotate to my back bar and shield up from there, and then hit my resto alt. And if you look at the resto alt we're using, it's Life Giver. It only cost 106 ultimate, and because of the way the damage lines up on a sorcerer, it's just a really well put together class. I end up sitting on this ultimate. I don't need it a whole lot. I'll activate this. Let's use an example. I go into a BG. I front loaded my ultimate. I have 500 ultimate. I could engage the first team, say green team spawns right on top of us wherever we zone into the BG. I can engage my energy overload and just go ham, start putting people away very quickly. And it might be that I help put green team down, and then the other team, purple team or red team, whatever, starts rolling up, and I take a metric ton of damage. We get pinched in that moment. While this is even still active, as long as I have over 106 ultimate still in the tank, I take all that damage, I hit my front shield, I hit my back shield, and I can still, while energy overload is active, as long as I have 106 ultimate, I can hit Life Giver and get saved. So that's really, really cool. And that's kind of the play on this. I don't need a heal on the back bar, and you don't want to rely on this heal because it has a 1 second cast time, and if you are interrupted, stunned, or hit, if you are hit or bashed while you're casting that 1 second cast time, you're stunned, and so and interrupted, so it's not really worth it to use it in the healing capacity. But because of crit surge, we're rewarded for being offensive. The more crit damage we're doing, the more we have heals coming in. And if you go to Dark Magic and you look at the second passive there, Blood Magic, whenever you hit an enemy with a direct applied Dark Magic ability, you heal for 2,800. And so every time a Crystal Frags procs, which is pretty regularly, like the way any of these, they're all magic abilities, and any one of them has a 35% chance to proc our frags. So frags being sent out, fragging out regularly equates to another heal. And then you throw in the fact, like if you had Pale Order on here, all the damage you're doing is healing you for 18%. So you just have continuous health coming in. So Pale Order requires you to really heal an immense amount, and on this build you're doing an immense amount of damage. And so definitely look into that. And then Ring of the Wild Hunt just makes you zip all around. So that's kind of the play on this. Something else too, talking about Life Giver, if you've never actually looked at this ability, this thing is freaking awesome. So Life Giver, like unbuffed right now, you can see it's 9,200 health coming in every second for 5 seconds. 9,200 health for 5 seconds. And Malcolm, arguably the best sorcerer in all of ESO, will tell you, like, if I need to tank down, I'm fighting multiple targets and they're putting some damage into me, I'll just hit Life Giver and then just stand and bang with them. Like, let's go. You're going to have to out damage everything that this ability's doing, and it's a lot. So Life Giver, 9,200 health coming in every second for 5 seconds. And then look at the bottom. When you activate this ability, it automatically casts Regeneration, Blessing of Protection, and Steadfast Ward at no cost. This will update based on which morph of each ability you have taken. And so I've taken Rapid Regen, which is an immense amount of healing over 5 seconds. For the next 5 seconds, I got 18k heals coming in. I also have the 9,200 coming in for the next 5 seconds. Like, just those two by themselves is just crazy healing. I'll also get this burst heal, 5,800 burst heal coming in, plus Minor Resolve, increasing you and your allies that are hit physical resistances by basically 3k for 8 seconds. So you think about the scenario when you need this. I need this to save myself. I get a burst heal from there. I get a huge amount of a big hot coming in from that. I get the 9,200 every 5 seconds, and I get the 3k resistances coming in. And then I also get Healing Ward. And so let's look at this here. Call on your staff's strength to protect you or the lowest health ally with a damage shield, 5,200 or 4,200. 4,200 is not a very big damage shield, right? But when you look at the second part, it says this shield strength is increased by up to 100% depending on the severity of the target's wounds. Well, I'm probably using this when I'm at 20% health or 30% health. I'm low, so we're gonna meet that 100%. So this damage shield ends up being an 8k damage shield plus. While the shield strength persists, the target's healing the target is healed for 34% of the shield's remaining strength. And so initially when you hit this, it's an 8k shield, and you're healed for 34% of that 8k shield for every second. 34% of 8k, do that math. There's some math for you. But let's talk about how that works, okay? So if you're a sorcerer, you know that first shield in is the first shield out, okay? So the first shield that you cast is going to be the first shield that's burned down. So if I'm on my offensive bar, I'm fighting and everything's just fine, and then I take a metric ton of damage. Like we said, Deltia is on Big Jake. He swings through the door like SWAT and just drops an anvil on me. He hits me like a truck, right? Deltia will love that. So Deltia swings in the window, hits me like a truck, and I need to hit my Hardened Ward. This will be the first shield that gets burned down. This will be the second shield, because I'll immediately switch my back bar to shield stack, and this will be the second shield that they need to burn through, and then I hit Life Giver. And so this healing ward, because I'm so low on health, will end up being an 8k shield that's healing me for 34% of that shield strength while I'm low health. Okay, and that shield, the 8k shield, is protected by both the other shields that I cast in order to get to that moment where this is there. And so we're stacking shields majorly. Also, all three of those shields, not only is that last shield healing me, but all three of those shields are protecting the immense amount of heal over time, that 9,200 coming in for the next 5 seconds, the 18,000 coming in over the next 5 seconds, the burst heal from that. And so Life Giver is absolutely the way to go, and it ends up being the only heal I need. So that's the long answer to it, huh? How about that? So obviously, as far as class passives, get everything in all the class passives. There are a couple things you can do too, which we did not talk about in the first build. Okay, so let's talk about those here. A couple flex spots for you. So here's some fun things for you. Elemental Rage. If you were fighting outnumbered on this build or any of these builds, okay, if you were fighting outnumbered, try using a Frost Staff and using Elemental Rage. It'll end up becoming Icy Rage. And I've actually killed a group of 20 to 30 people with this, and it was because they were in an extended fight. It was a mosh pit. Everybody was balled up and fighting. And with a Frost Staff, I dropped Elemental Rage on them, which you can see down here at the bottom. It says Elemental Rage immobilizes enemies for 3 seconds. And so what happens a lot of times, most people can't figure out why they can't move, and you'll see them just bashing, right, like trying to get out of an immobilization when they need to dodge roll. And so what I'll do is I'll drop Elemental Rage on a big group, a mosh pit of people, and then I streak through them. And so the streak will hard CC or stun them, and then they break the stun and they're still immobilized. And then if they don't have the stamina to also dodge roll and get out of it, it's terrible. And another thing about the Elemental Rage, the Icy Rage with the Frost Staff, it slows them too. So breaking free and dodge rolling, and then if they're still not out of it, they're still trying to run out of this effect, and they're running at a slower rate. And so a Frost Staff and using Elemental Rage or Icy Rage is a lot of fun. Now, your kit will hit softer with an Ice Staff, but your heavy attack into with a Frost Staff, your heavy attack will give you a damage shield, so it makes you feel a little beefy too. You can see right there, fully charged heavy attacks with Frost Staff grants you a damage shield of 4,200. So that's not a whole lot, but it is a little something that will shield your health and allow your crit surge and blood magic healing to do something. So worth looking into. Another thing also that you would want to look at is, where is it? Right here. Magic Detonation. Okay, once you get to 10 Assault and you're using Magic Detonation, try doing Inevitable Detonation. And what I'll do is I'll take this front damage shield off my bar. We'll kind of roll the dice a little bit, and we've got a big explosion with a AoE explosion going on, and then we will put inevitable detonation on the bar too. Let's read this. Curse an enemy with magical bomb that explodes after 4 seconds, dealing unbuffed 7,300 magic damage. And so 7,300 magic damage on a target might hit them for 3k or 4k. That's not a whole lot. But if you read the bottom, if the bomb is dispelled or removed early, the explosion is triggered immediately. So if you're running, if I'm facing ball groups, or I'm facing like mosh pits with a bunch of healers and a bunch of people moving around, throw an inevitable detonation into the group, and one of the healers purges, or that person cleanses the ability, it's going to go off prematurely. And then read the bottom part. Each enemy within the bomb's radius increases the damage done by 25%. So this ability can get out of control very quickly in that mosh pit, or that Zerg, or that ball group that's moving around. And so when I'm facing those type of odds, I will throw this on the bar. I'll probably switch to a Frost Staff and also pair that with the Icy Rage up here at the top. And that's a fun combo to do. And I think that's it. So we are a high elf, and then if you look at the food, we're using Bewitched Sugar Skulls, and we're running the Apprentice Mundus Stone for additional spell damage, and that works out very well. I think that's it. Let me hover over each one of the items here real quick for you if I haven't done that already, just in case you have questions about that. Okay, and let's jump into the CP. Going to be the same CP as the build before, however, this CP benefits more so from the armor sets we're using because of this right here. Elfborn, 61 points into that critical damage and critical healing. We're increasing our critical damage done, so in a CP scenario, when mechanical acuity procs, all that crit damage is hitting for 21% more. So that works out very well. 56 points in elemental expert. We do every one of those damage types, so that's important. 29 points in the spell erosion. We're in a tanky meta, and there's freaking crazy werewolves running around, so don't skip out on spell erosion. 63 points into staff expert, and that basically makes our energy overload hit 30% harder. Our light and heavy attacks as well, but energy overload really chunks people. 61 points into mastered arms. Every single damage ability that we do on this has a direct damage component to it, so mastered arms hits very hard. Nothing here in the ritual. 61 points into ironclad, so that way most of the heaviest hitting abilities in the game are going to be direct damage, and so ironclad's going to lower that by 21%. You can see there. 49 points into spell shield. I like max resistances on builds. You can go a different way, but this works for me. Spell shield, 49 points. It increases our spell resistance by 3,900. 40 points into light armor focus, so we got an extra 3,300 physical resistances. 56 points into quick recovery, so our healing received is increased by 12%, and 61 points into bastion, and that's going to increase our shield strength by 21%. 2 points into Siphoner. Don't skip out on this if you are a sorcerer, beginning or intermediate or even advanced. When you prime a target, you put Endless Fury on them, you put Haunting Curse on them. If they hit Purge or they hit Cleanse, and you have Siphoner, at least 1 point into that, it might actually cleanse this and keep the 2 harmful effects on them, right? So say they're a warden and they notice that they get Endless Fury on them, or they notice that they get Haunting Curse on them, and then they just resummon their Bullnetch or whatever. Well, Bullnetch is a free ability from them. It doesn't cost them anything. So they hit Bullnetch, and Bullnetch only clears Siphoner, and the 2 harmful effects are still on them. So pick up Siphoner. 61 points in Warlord. You are going to be CC'd. You will need to break free, so you might as well cut the cost of that in a CP scenario by 21%. 49 points into Mooncalf. Don't skip out on this if you are a sorcerer. I explained this in the other build video, and we'll just briefly touch base on it. Most of the beginner to intermediate sorcerers that I'm working with and I'm training in a PvP environment or scenario are getting stam checked. If you do not have enough stamina recovery to break free, dodge roll like, the reason is most beginning Magicka class players are sprinting to the fights. They're already burning their stamina, and by the time they get there, they don't have enough in the tank to break free or dodge roll. Okay, and they get killed. Didn't even matter what their max Magicka was. Congratulations, you got 50k max Magicka, but you got stam checked and killed. So get your stamina recovery up. Don't skip out on it. 64 points into Arcanist for an extra 13% magic recovery, and you could probably take that up to like 14% by going 71 or 74 points in there, but 56 points into Tenacity, and increase the Magicka and stamina of your fully charged heavy attacks. And the Resto Heavy Attack, Resto Staff, has a passive that returns you a bunch of additional Magicka when you're channeling a Resto Heavy Attack. And so there might be times where I can't land a shot on the really roly-poly type players with the Flame Staff, and so I'll just go to my back bar with the Resto Heavy Attack and hold that channel on them while they're dodge rolling around, right? Like, that's really cute. But the Resto Staff just stays attached to them, doing damage to them. So this will increase that damage and increase your magic return. 27 points into health recovery, and this pairs pretty nicely with the Blood Magic passive that we talked about, and you have healing coming in with that, and then you have healing coming in from Crit Surge, and then you have your health recovery with some health coming in as well. And then 11 points into Tumbling. I do play this because my max stamina is high. I play this as a very athletic type sorcerer, so I do dodge roll from time to time while shield stacking just to turn the tide. I'll dodge roll, shield stack, and then turn around, offensively streak through them, and then burn them down. So one other thing, because I don't know if I did it or not, and that's so 22,000 spell resistance, 20,000 physical resistances on my front bar. You can see our magic recoveries fairly on the low, and stamina as well. 4k spell damage, and then like I said, we'll get it up to 4,800 spell damage, no problem. And then our spell pin is at 10k. And then let's look at our back bar, because we are defending on our back bar. And so when you go to our back bar, you can see 25, almost 26,000 spell resistance, and almost 24,000 physical resistance. Very beefy sorcerer. Crit resistance on the low, but I'm an intermediate to advanced sorcerer, and so that doesn't seem to be a problem for me right now. Anyways, that's a build. 1.21 Jiggawatts. There it is for you guys. Thanks. Hey everybody, welcome to Grimsforge Gaming. Here is our third build of the day. This is going to be Valkorion 2.0. So if you've seen our Valkorion 1.0, you saw that this is a Imperial City kind of exclusive type build. You can make some changes to it if you wanted to get rid of, obviously we're wearing Imperial Physique. If you wanted to get rid of Imperial Physique, I would run with Shackle Breaker in its place. But let's jump into the build here. This build does feature 6,584 spell damage, and I'll share the screenshot with you right now, and also the immense amount of damage. Even the most tanky of targets, obviously, when you are running 6,000 plus spell damage, it'll hurt them. And I have a video clip. There was an individual that we ran into on a regular basis running a Stamplar, and he was a very tanky Stamplar, and you can see that it doesn't take long with the amount of damage and the way that damage lines up on a sorcerer to put the tanky targets down with that type of spell damage. So let's jump into the build. First things first, this is a front bar back bar setup, and what I mean by that is when we're on the back bar we have access to one 5-piece, and then when we go to the front bar we lose access to that 5-piece. So let's talk about what that 5-piece is. First off, that 5-piece is going to be Clever Alchemist. Clever Alchemist is very important for this build because of a couple things, and we'll talk about that. But you can see here it's max health, and then spell damage. And then when you drink a potion during combat, you feel a rush of energy, increasing your spell damage by 659 for 20 seconds. And so that gives this build the ability to get up to 6,500 plus spell damage, and that's great. Let's talk about when we go to the front bar. When we go to the front bar, we are running 3-piece willpower. And so what we have here is a willpower necklace infused with spell damage, and then a willpower inferno staff. And so that's how the front bar back bar type setup works on this. And so our willpower when we go to our back bar is completely broken. You see, we're not achieving the 2-piece or the 3-piece of it, but as soon as we go back to our front bar where we're doing damage, we have a Nern honed inferno willpower staff waiting for us, and that's extra 1712 max magicka and another 201 spell damage, and that's great. The other set that we have paired this with, and we already talked about it, is going to be Imperial Physique. And so Imperial Physique is going to give us stamina recovery, it's going to give us magic recovery, and it's going to give us max stats. And so when you look at the bottom here, while you are in Imperial City and you tap into the power of the Telvar stones, you are carrying, increasing your health, magicka, and stamina by 7,000. Okay, this will end up becoming like 7,200 if I were to gold these out, which I probably will. And so basically we need to be carrying 10k Telvar on us, and we're going to get 7,000 additional of all of our stats: magicka, stamina, and health. This setup is very important for this build, and Clever Alchemist is very important for this build. We need that max health that's coming in because we are running Thracian Stranglers. And Thracian Stranglers kill an enemy, grant you a stack of Slode's Call for 1 hour, up to a maximum of 50 stacks. Each stack increases your spell damage by 23, increasing your maximum health, or reducing your maximum health by 120. So, and reducing the effectiveness of your damage shields. So when we are at 50 stacks on this, 50 times 120 is going to be 6k. When we're at max stats, on the max stacks, we will be short 6,000 health, and that's why we need Imperial Physique, and that's why we need on our back bar the 2 lines of health from our Clever Alchemist. Okay, but this is the equivalent of 1,150 spell damage when we're at max stacks, and so that's how we're able to reach the ridiculously high spell damage. This is us just buffed up. This is without Clever Alchemist, and this is without the spell damage glyph from our Resto Staff when we tap that. Okay, and that's what gets us to that screenshot. Tap with the Resto Staff, drink a potion, switch to your front bar, 6,500, 6,584 spell damage, just short of 6,600 spell damage. Hits extremely hard. So let's we've looked at the things. Now here's something. I like prismatic enchants. I think prismatic enchants make a lot of sense on this build, so that way you get max mag, max health, and max stamina. And for whatever reason I didn't have those on these two, so the stats will vary just slightly, but anyways, yeah. So let's look at this. When we're looking at the stats, obviously we know that the spell damage will go up to that 6,584 spell damage. We do have 23% crit, and on our offensive bar, 20,000 spell resistance, 16,000 physical resistance, and our critical resistance is at 2,000. Our pen's about 10k on this. That'll get the job done, and our recoveries are a little bit on the low. Let me pop a potion here real quick and see what those get up to. Yeah, so our recoveries are a little bit on the low, but when you have really high max stats, it's no problem. Also, when you have 6,500 spell damage, just winding up a heavy attack will really thump players. So don't be surprised when you're hitting players with just a plain old heavy attack and it's hurting them. So that is interesting. Let me buff up again, and we're going to look at some tooltips here, and obviously the tooltips will get so much better than what you're going to see, but 4,200, 4,200, and 4,300, okay? That's like, this is going to hit players for 6 to 7k, and if it crits, it'll hit them for way more than that. Also, we are short a lot of spell damage right now, so this gets ridiculous, probably close to 5,000 per hit. So 15k per line is really stupid. You can see that our crystal frag's got a 15k tooltip. This will get up over 20k tooltip on it when it procs. So you can see right there at the bottom, increase your crystal frag damage by 66%. So take 15,000, add 66% to it, you'll break 20k. So it's hitting players for 10k, and if it crits, it'll hit them for more. Tooltip on this is 18,000. It would be well over 20,000, almost 22,000 tooltip per explosion. So it's going to hit enemy players for over 10k whenever it explodes. That's a lot of damage, my guy. And then we've got Endless Fury. That's going to be our execute, and it does a respectable damage. You know, it'll hit them for 2,500, and if it crits, it'll hit for more than that. Let's buff up again as best we can. We're still missing, obviously, a lot of spell damage here because of Clever Alchemist not being procced. 18k tooltips on our overloads, and so this ends up being 23k per overload that we're throwing out, and so it ends up hitting players for a lot. And so I like that energy overload. Same offensive kit. Watch the first two builds if you haven't already. I'll tell you how you line up damage, how you line up kills, and how this absolutely destroys people. Back bar, same setup on the back bar. Streak, Crit Surge, Boundless Storm, Shield, and Dark Conversion gives us, this is why we can run such low recoveries on this. And then right now I'm still leveling this up. We will go with Life Giver like the other two builds. Watch those if you want to see all the pluses to Life Giver, but basically Life Giver ends up being basically the only heal I need on the kit outside of my Crit Surge and me being offensive, and then Blood Magic from the class passive right here. So I am really short on Sky Shards. I raced this guy to CP and we're still farming, so it's not even complete yet. But you will want all your passives, all your class passives, all your weapon passives. Look at this. I just got my Resto Staff to 50 and finally got that unlocked, and we're missing so much stuff right now. But get all your light armor passives, and you only need the first 3. This is a 2 heavy 5 light setup, and we are a Breton, and so Breton's pretty interesting. Max Magicka, and then increase your spell resistance, and then your magic recovery, and then reduce the cost of your abilities, and so that's pretty interesting. What else about this? I feel like I might be missing something, but who knows? Alright, so jump into the CP and we'll call it a day here. CP allotment on this, we've got 31 points into L form for critical damage, critical healing, and magic, critical damage and critical healing. So whenever we crit on this build, it destroys. 64 points into Elemental Expert. We do all of these damage types too on this build. 63 points into Spell Erosion. 81 points in Mastered Arm, increases their direct damage done by 24%. Everything we do on this build has a direct damage component to it. 31 points into Staff Expert, increases our energy overload damage by 18%. And nothing here in the ritual. 61 points into Ironclad. You are gonna, or most of the heaviest hitting damage in the game is going to be considered direct damage for the most part, and so you need to cut that damage received by a lot. And on this one we went a different route. We are running 43 points into Hardy for an extra 10% damage mitigation, 37 points into Elemental Defender for an extra 9% magic, and then we've got a point dump here to cut the dot damage on us. 56 point into Bastion and increase our shields by 20%, 64 points into quick recovery. Now if you wanted to come off these and change this a little bit, I would put just like the CP from the first two builds, 40 points into light armor focus, and then the rest of the points into spell shield, or switch those around because you're a Breton. But anyways, 64 points into quick recovery, increasing your healing received by 13%. That's important. 1 point in a Siphoner, and we talked about it in the other 2 videos, but when you prime a target, you put Haunting Curse on them and you put Endless Fury on them. If you're running Siphoner, there might be a chance that when they purge or cleanse that negative effect, they might actually only remove Siphoner, and the 2 harmful effects stay on them. So don't skip out on this. Actually get at least 1 point in the Siphoner. And then 56 points into Warlord. You are going to be CC'd. You will need to break free, so you might as well reduce the cost of breaking free by 20%. 56 points into Mooncalf. Do not skip out on this, and the reason being is our stamina recovery is fairly low to begin with, and most newer PvPers that are new to Sorcerer or intermediate Sorcerers are sprinting to battle, and their stamina is lowering as they're running to battle. They take a hard CC, and they don't have the stamina to break free. They get stam checked and they get killed. So put the points into there. 76 points into Arcanus for a nice 14% magic recovery. 43 points into Tenacity, so that way when we're channeling a Resto heavy attack, there's also a Resto staff passive that increases your magic gain from holding Resto heavy attacks, and this adds to that. 7 points, it's a point dump for me, but it gives us extra 2% to health recovery. 31 points into Tumbling, and I think this is very important. So on Valkorion, because we are using Thracians, we can't sneak. If we sneak, we lose all of our stacks from Slode's Call, and so they're going to basically be able to see where we're at. There's no sneaking around, so Tumbling's very important on him. And that is it, everyone. Anyways, Valkorion 2.0, Clever Alchemist back bar, Imperial Physique both front and back bar, Thracians, and we're running Willpower 3-piece on the front bar and Clever Alchemist 5-piece on the back bar. And the screenshot will show you that it gets up to 6,584 damage, which will destroy planets. So that's it, everybody. Be safe out there. Thanks.